That song was Uncertain Times, written by Mitch Davey and performed by our choir here at UUCE. Have you ever thought about how one day, when you were a child, your parents put you down and never picked you back up again? The first time I heard that quote, I was stunned in the kind of way that people are when they watch Fight Club or The Sixth Sense for the first time, right? You can't re-see it or rehear it. The idea that significant moments in my own life could pass by without my notice, such significant moments, shook me. In some way, I think the realization was beneficial because I started paying more attention, not just to the moments of my life, but what they might mean. The last time I saw my Uncle Harry alive, I knew that that day might take on significance later. The first time I met my partner, Ed, I paid attention to the color of his shirt, the way he held his coffee cup, thinking that that day might later take on more significance. And still, sometimes the big milestones pass by without my notice. I've told you before that on the last normal day I had in the church office, planning worship, talking to Revlo and Katie, when I walked out the door to go home, I had no idea that I would never walk back in for a worship service in that building again. I believe that the nature of the universe is that everything is always changing, and that belief undergirds my religious experience, because I believe in the dual importance of being present to what is now in this moment, as well as the importance of letting go of what is precious, because nothing stays the same. In 2015, it seemed like many doors in my life slammed at once, and this was the lead up to my applying to seminary. And I experienced something of a midlife crisis. So I went on an extended road trip, hiking, backpacking, camping, all up and down the East Coast from North Carolina and Kentucky all the way up to Vermont and New Hampshire. And for much of that time, I had no plan. I had nowhere to be. I ate when I was hungry. I slept when I was tired. I moved to another forest when the spirit moved me. I learned to build a campfire in the rain because I didn't know when it was going to rain. I hadn't checked. I got stuck in Kentucky for days longer than expected because I saw a bunch of blue butterflies on the banks of Rock Creek, and I thought it was a sign. But throughout the trip, I experienced this kind of protracted philosophical crisis. Because there was nothing I had to do, and I could do anything. Everything was open to me. I became acutely aware of all the things I was not doing. Doing one thing, staying at Rock Creek, meant not doing a billion others, going camping in any other state, for instance. Every choice I made meant giving up everything else on earth. I'd be driving down a country road and I'd see a really cool old abandoned farmhouse and think, oh my gosh, I have to turn this car around and go explore. But before I could turn the car around, I would see a sign that would say, Maple Freezies, 2 miles ahead on the left. And I'd think, what is a maple freezie? But before I could turn left, I would see up ahead a bunch of lambs in a field and think, okay, well, I need to go pet those, obviously. To dwell on what I had passed, given up, left behind, meant missing out on what was to come. And to stop here meant to not stop there. And like the poem I'm Not Ready to Die Yet by Araceli Skarmai, I was faced with the sheer awesomeness and possibility of the human life, lived moment to moment. The impossibility of doing everything worth doing. And there is a lot worth doing. The poet Mark Doty writes, don't let anybody tell you death's the price extracted for the ability to love. Couldn't we live forever without running out of occasions? And I think I could. In the mountains of Vermont, I stumbled across an entire creek bed full of sparkly rocks, all different colors and shapes. Now, this was before Revlo had introduced me to the idea that rocks have names and they're created a certain way, and you can go seek them out on purpose using maps and science. It seemed to me at that time that if I ever left this creek bed, I would probably never come back, and I might never see such beautiful pebbles again. And so I sat on a boulder for most of the afternoon, picking up pebble after pebble after pebble, each of them different and special in some way, until all my pockets were full, and I couldn't carry any more. And there were still more beautiful pebbles, and I had not looked at all of them. I could only take so many with me, and the sun was starting to go down, and I realized I had to get back to my camp for safety. It broke my heart to think that every rock I didn't take was just as beautiful and worthy of being worshipped as the ones I did take. My grasp was so finite it seemed arbitrary, like why take any rocks at all? I would have never run out of miracles sitting in that creek bed, but I had to go. And for a moment, I consoled myself, thinking, I'll just come back the next day. I'll come back tomorrow. We can do this again. And then suddenly I realized I wouldn't. I mean, for one thing, I could never come back to that moment, that day, that first time seeing that sparkly creek bed. And the way creeks work, it wouldn't be the same creek bed the next day. It wouldn't be the same pebbles. The pebbles I left today, I'd be leaving forever no matter what. And the next day would be a different one. I had no idea what I'd be doing the next day. But wouldn't that, whatever it was, also be worthy of my attention, my reverence? And if I gave up that unknown possibility, whatever the next day would have held, if I gave it up to go dwell on the rocks, what sacredness would I be missing? A meadow full of wildflowers, or a waterfall, or good clouds? I didn't know. But I had to show up to the next day, empty-handed, without expectations, or wonder would not be possible. And so somehow I entered into this kind of faith that what came next, though I didn't know what it was, would also be worth it. But I had to leave the creek bed behind, even though I loved it. I wish I could say in some grand gesture or moment of enlightenment that I on the spot just emptied out my pockets, left every pebble behind, relinquished my mortal grasp, and left empty-handed but free and rich in spirit. Absolutely not. I took every rock I could. My pockets were jammed. I knew it was futile. I did it anyway because I'm not the Buddha. And I still hold on to things as futile as I know it is. If I could have took the whole creek in my pocket, I would have. But the pebbles had to suffice as a stand-in and a reminder. We've been in this beautiful creek together for 3 years, and now I have to go. But I'm keeping every memory I can in my pockets. And as we go through the sacred, ungraspable moments of our lives apart, I trust both that you'll be living worthy and precious days where you are, and that we'll not forget each other for the days that we have spent. As the poet Araceli Girmay writes, somewhere in the night a mouth is singing, you remind me, and the heart flips over in the dusky sea of its chest like a fish signaling, yes, yes, it was me, and yes, it was, and you were there and are here now. And that is a blessing. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be.